He left her with nothing. No money, no home, no dignity. A divorced mother abandoned at her lowest point, mocked and forgotten by those who once smiled in her face. But what no one saw coming was the fire inside her. The strength that would carry her from rock bottom to a destiny that shocked everyone. Years later, she would return, not as a broken woman, but as the owner of the very mansion she had once been thrown out of. Before we begin this powerful journey of betrayal, resilience, and ultimate redemption, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. These emotional stories will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very last second. They made her sign the papers on the hood of his car, the same glossy black sedan he'd polished like a mirror while their marriage dulled around them. The lawyer spoke quickly, his pen tapping as if impatience could speed up the erasure of a life. "You understand the terms, Ms. Reyes?" he asked without looking at her. She hated the Ms. Not for what it meant, but for how easily it cut her away from everything she had poured herself into. Her husband, ex-husband by the final stroke, stood a step back, arms folded, mouth flat. 6 years together reduced to a checklist. House to him, savings to him, the car to him. Child support pending review. A phrase that meant paper delays and empty cupboards. What she kept was a suitcase and a daughter who watched from the porch with a backpack and a face that tried to be brave. The mansion glowed behind them, all white stone and clean angles. The kind of house that swallowed sound and spit back echoes. She had chosen the kitchen tiles, the warm wooden table, the little window seat where their daughter, Maya, read on rainy afternoons. Now the place looked like a showroom, her fingerprints wiped away. "You can't even let us pack in peace?" she asked. Her voice sounded smaller than she felt. "You have 20 minutes, he said, eyes sliding beyond her. "Contractors arrive at noon. 20 minutes to dismantle a life." She moved quickly, grabbing Maya's drawings off the refrigerator. A jar of coins from the laundry room. The photo of the three of them at the beach before the arguments turned into a language they spoke fluently. She knew the fight was over. The bruising part wasn't his indifference but the efficiency of it. He had prepared for this. She had been preparing only to survive. They carried the suitcase down the front steps. The door closed with a soft click that felt louder than any slam. Her ex adjusted his cufflinks, nodding at the lawyer. "Take care," he said to her, a phrase that landed like a shove. She did not cry until the bus doors folded shut and the mansion slid out of view, shrinking through the smudged window. Maya tucked her hand into her mother's and whispered, "We still have each other." It steadied her better than any railing. "We do," she said, and meant it as a vow. The motel room smelled like bleach and old summer. Emma tucked the suitcase beneath the bed and turned the bathroom into a closet, balancing shampoo on the tank and hanging 2 dresses on the shower rod. She ranked bills on a legal pad. Rent for a studio they didn't yet have, food, bus passes, school supplies, a deposit she couldn't imagine making. The legal pad was a battlefield where math drew blood. She circled numbers and crossed out hopes. When Maya fell asleep, Emma stared at the popcorn ceiling and counted seconds between the hums of the vending machine outside. Morning was a shuffle of lines and forms. A food pantry that opened at 9, a charity that might help with a month of rent if a social worker signed the right box, an HR office where she asked for more shifts. She took them all. She cleaned offices at night until the ammonia made her eyes sting, and she served coffee before dawn to men in ties who never looked up. Every day, she passed the bus stop that sat across from a wrought iron gate, the same sweeping gate that guarded the mansion she had once called home. The grounds crew trimmed hedges into obedient shapes. Moving trucks came and went. She never looked long, but the gate lived like a thorn under the skin. A reminder and a dare. On a Tuesday in late spring, the cafe manager handed her a stack of flyers. "Post these by the register," he said. The top one announced an estate sale. A photo of a chandelier blazing over an empty foyer, the address black and bold. Her fingers tightened. It was the mansion. Her mansion. "They're clearing out fast," the manager added, unaware of the ground shifting beneath her feet. That night, she took a detour after her cleaning shift, stepping off the bus 2 stops early. The gate was ajar, the driveway dotted with vans, the porch piled with boxes labeled in block letters. Living room, study, primary. A woman with a clipboard called out lot numbers. Strangers drifted through rooms, measuring with eyes and wallets. Emma stood on the threshold and felt the oddest thing. Not grief, not rage. Clarity. The house was not a cathedral. It was drywall, stone, and money. The life she wanted had never been in its echoing hallways. It was in the smallness of a hand in hers, the certainty of waking up and choosing tomorrow anyway. She walked through like a tourist in a city she once loved. In the kitchen, a man argued about the price of the butcher block island. In the study, a couple debated whether the leather chair would fit their den. On a side table by the window, under a flimsy tent card that read assorted papers, sat a stack of folders bound with twine. She didn't mean to touch them, but the top folder had a name that froze her in place. Her maiden name, written in looping blue ink. "Can I help you?" The woman with the clipboard appeared, efficient and suspicious. Emma stepped back. I used to live here," she said, hearing how thin it sounded. The woman softened by a degree. "Everyone used to live somewhere," she said, and turned to call a price on the chandelier. Emma lingered one beat too long, then left, feeling the house exhale behind her. At the gate, she realized she was still holding a single sheet she'd pulled free without thinking. Her thumb pressed to a corner, smudging the ink. She looked down, heart stumbling. It was a letter on the letterhead of a small law firm she didn't recognize, addressed to her. Maiden name, Motel Street spelled correctly, today's date stamped at the top. The subject line was short and impossible. Notice of probate, potential beneficiary, property at the mansion's address. Her breath hitched. She read the first paragraph again, then a third time, each word heavy as a key. Someone connected to that house had died. Someone had named her. The street lamp buzzed, the night widened, and the mansion loomed beyond the hedge like a puzzle that had suddenly lost a piece. Who had left her anything from a life that had spit her out? And why did the law firm claim she might own a part of the very house that threw her into the street? Emma sat at the bus stop long after the estate sale crowd had faded, her fingers tightening around the letter until the edges bent. Notice of probate, potential beneficiary. She whispered the words aloud as if they might sound less impossible in her voice. But they didn't. The law firm's address was downtown. The appointment date was stamped in bold at the bottom. Friday, 10 a.m., 2 days away. She tucked the paper deep in her bag, as though someone might snatch it away if they saw it. On the bus, she stared out the window at the blur of neon and exhaust. Her reflection in the glass looked unfamiliar, half terrified, half defiant. She thought of Maya asleep at the motel, her daughter's sketchbook balanced on the nightstand. If the letter was real, if it wasn't some cruel mistake, maybe life wasn't finished with her yet. The next morning, she said nothing to Maya. Hope could be dangerous when spoken too soon. Instead, she packed her daughter's school lunch and walked her to the bus stop, nodding at neighbors who didn't know her story, who only saw another tired mother with shadows under her eyes. After work, she went straight to the library. She typed probate into the search bar, her hands clammy against the keyboard. The words she read swam with legal weight. Estate distribution, contested wills, beneficiaries. Could it really mean what she thought it did, that she might inherit something connected to the mansion? Her mind raced through possibilities. Had someone in his family pitted her? Had an elderly relative seen the way he discarded her and decided to act? Or was it all an error, a cruel coincidence of names? She closed the book, heart pounding. Whether fortune or farce, she had no choice but to show up on Friday. That night in the motel, she rehearsed what she might say. I was married to him. I lived in that house. I have a daughter. She lay awake staring at the popcorn ceiling, the letter clutched under her pillow as though its words could shield her from the uncertainty pressing in from all sides. Friday came too quickly. Emma dressed in her cleanest outfit, black slacks and a cream blouse she had ironed on the motel's rickety board. She braided her hair tightly, forcing her hands to be steady. At the bathroom mirror, she whispered to her reflection, "You belong in that office. You are not less than them." She didn't entirely believe it, but she carried the lie like armor. The law firm's office tower loomed above her, all glass and steel. Inside, polished floors reflected her scuffed shoes. The receptionist glanced at her, expression unreadable, before directing her to a waiting room with high-backed chairs and magazines stacked in neat piles. She sat alone, gripping her purse. Each tick of the wall clock scraped her nerves. Finally, a man in a gray suit appeared. "Ms. Reyes?" he asked. She stood, her knees stiff. "Yes." He led her into a wood-paneled office smelling faintly of leather and ink. Behind the desk, an older attorney with silver hair gestured for her to sit. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Reyes. This won't take long." Emma perched on the edge of the chair, heart pounding. The attorney opened a folder. "As you may know, your former husband's uncle, Mr. Howard Ellison, passed away last month. His will designated certain heirs. Among them you." Emma blinked. "There must be a mistake. I'm divorced. I haven't spoken to Howard in years." The attorney adjusted his glasses. "Nevertheless, his wishes are clear. He admired the way you cared for the estate when you lived there. He often mentioned your steadiness. In his words, he believed you had the grit to preserve what others squander." Her breath caught. The room tilted. She remembered Howard, quiet, watchful, the one who had asked about her baking at family gatherings, who had once slipped Maya a book about courage. The attorney continued, "You are to inherit 1/3 of his estate, including partial ownership of the property at 1475 Ashwood Lane." Emma's pulse roared in her ears. Ashwood Lane, the mansion. She tried to process, but her mind blurred with images. The mansion's gleaming windows, the iron gate she had walked past countless times, her ex-husband's smug smile when he had thrown her out. Partial ownership meant she had a legal claim to the very place he had said she would never see again. The attorney closed the folder. "You'll need to decide whether to accept or waive your share. The other heirs may contest it, of course." Emma's lips parted. "The other heirs?" "Yes," he said calmly. "Your ex-husband is one of them. He'll be notified today." Emma's chest tightened. Of course. Mark would never let this stand quietly. He would fight, he would scheme, he would do everything in his power to strip it from her again. The attorney leaned forward. "Do you wish to accept the inheritance, Ms. Reyes?" Emma looked down at her trembling hands. She thought of Maya, of nights counting pennies, of whispers in grocery lines, of doors slammed in her face. She thought of the gate, the mansion looming, the letter like a dare. Her throat tightened, but her voice came steady. "Yes, I accept." The attorney nodded, scribbling on a form. "Then prepare yourself. The family will not be pleased." Emma swallowed hard. Outside, the city traffic roared like an ocean. She had just set something in motion, something that could change everything or destroy her. And she knew the storm was about to break. Mark found out before she reached the sidewalk. The attorney had warned her, he'll be notified today. But Emma hadn't expected the call to land like a fist. Her phone lit up with his name, the same number she'd taught herself not to answer. She almost let it ring out. Almost. "What game are you playing?" His voice was low, coiled. "No game," she said, surprised at her own calm. "Howard left me a share." "You mean a clerical error," he snapped. "You don't belong in this conversation, Emma. Sign the waiver, take a token payment, and disappear. I'll have my lawyer draft it." She pictured the mansion's gate, the morning she had stood outside it like a trespasser in her own history. "I'm not waiving," she said. Silence crackled. Then the soft click of a measured breath. "Then prepare to lose in court. You couldn't manage a household. You think you can manage an estate." The old wound pulsed. She let it throb and fade. "I'm not alone," she said, though technically she was. She hung up before the tremor in her hand reached her voice. Outside the tower's glass doors, downtown heat rolled up from the pavement. Cars hissed past. A man hawked newspapers. A bus exhaled. Ordinary life didn't pause for seismic shifts. Emma stood still, letting the city anchor her until fear slid off like rain. At the motel, Maya sat cross-legged on the bed, sketchbook open. How did it go? Emma had promised herself she wouldn't build castles out of conjecture. But this wasn't guesswork. It was ink and law and the memory of a quiet uncle who had seen her. She sank beside her daughter. He left me part of the estate, she said gently. A third. Maya's eyes widened. Does that mean the house? Maybe, Emma said. It means we have a claim. It also means your father is going to fight. Let him, Maya said, fiercer than her years. We'll fight back. They celebrated with grocery store cupcakes and paper cups of milk, a small bright rebellion against years of scarcity. After Maya fell asleep, Emma opened the attorney's folder again. Tucked behind the will was a note in a slanted hand. Emma, if this finds you, know that I saw what others refused to. Stewardship matters. Don't be bullied out of what's yours. H.E. She read it twice, then a third time, the words settling like ballast. Morning brought movement. The attorney called first. An emergency status conference was set for Wednesday. Mark's legal team had already requested it, arguing immediate harm if sales continued with Emma involved. Then the estate's property manager emailed an inventory and a schedule. The sale of non-heritage contents would resume in 48 hours unless a judge said otherwise. Emma needed more than resolve. She needed a strategy. She used her break at the cafe to call the non-profit legal clinic she'd found during last night's library dive. A woman named Priya answered, voice brisk and warm. Bring the will and the probate notice, she said. We'll prep for the hearing. And Emma, do not sign anything they shove at you. By afternoon, Mark had moved from threats to theater. A courier slid a manila envelope under the motel door. An offer of settlement. A number so small it read as insult. Beneath it, in smaller print, a non-disparagement clause and a confidentiality gag. Emma laughed once, a sound with no humor in it, and put the offer in the trash. She rode the bus to Ashwood Lane at dusk, not to haunt old rooms but to look straight at the fight. The gate was half open. Inside, a security guard checked a clipboard while two workers wheeled out a rug she remembered choosing on a rainy Saturday. You can't go in, the guard said, not unkindly. Private sale. I'm a co-owner, Emma said, surprising them both with the steadiness in her voice. She held up the probate letter. He skimmed it, frowned, and made a call. After a minute, he stepped back. You can walk the grounds. No farther. She crossed the gravel drive, small stones popping under her shoes. The fountain, once stark and proud, had been drained. A ring of mineral crust clung like a scar. The hydrangeas along the east wall sagged in the heat, in need of the deep watering she'd learned to give them at dawn. She trailed her fingers along a sun-warmed railing and felt the past lift, not as a possession but as muscle memory. Emma, a voice floated from the side yard. Mrs. Alvarez, the housekeeper who had lasted longer than most, stood in the shade, a canvas sack on her hip. Dios mío, I heard rumors. Emma's throat tightened. I didn't mean to cause trouble. Trouble finds us either way, Alvarez said, eyes kind and sharp. Howard had a good eye. He didn't waste kindness. She glanced toward the house. He told me once, if I can't leave the place to people who care, the place isn't worth leaving. He kept envelopes in the study bottom drawer, false back. Said they were for one day. Emma's pulse jumped. Envelopes? Alvarez nodded. I don't know more. Just that he didn't trust lawyers to carry everything. Security called out, and Alvarez squeezed Emma's hand before disappearing through a service gate. Emma stood alone in the warm evening, the word falseback flashing like a signal flare. The study, lot numbers, buyers, strangers. If there were letters, if Howard had tucked away something meant to fortify her claim or expose the rot, time was draining fast. The sale would strip the house of more than furniture. It would dismantle context, erase breadcrumbs. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Meet me at the south gate. 10 minutes. Come alone. She stared, weighing trap against opportunity. The number pinged again. I can help you keep what's yours. But not if he sees me. She looked toward the road. The south gate was the old service entrance by the magnolias, out of sight from the main drive. Fear whispered its litany. Still she went. At the gate, A figure stepped from the trees. The man with round glasses from the judging panel months ago. The one who had leaned in, curious, before Mark had poisoned the room. He looked over his shoulder, then at her. "I shouldn't be here," he said. "But I owed Howard. And I owe you." He left a codicil, an addendum they're trying to bury. It references stewardship, community use, your right of first refusal on any sale of the property. 30 days. Emma's breath caught. 30 days from when? He glanced at his watch, then passed her to the drive where trucks idled. From the notice 2 days ago. The clock is already running. A car turned onto Ashwood Lane, headlights cutting through the magnolia shade. The sedan slowed, then stopped. Emma knew that engine before the driver's door opened. Mark stepped out, eyes flicking from the man to Emma, his smile thin and feral. "Evening," he said lightly. "Plotting, are we?" The man with glasses paled. "You didn't hear this from me?" he whispered, and melted into the trees. Mark took 2 slow steps forward, voice silk over steel. "You have 30 days to make a move you can't afford. Or you can take my offer, and I erase this mess for you." Emma didn't back up. She felt the seconds in her veins, the weight of the codicil she hadn't seen, the drawer she had to reach, the hearing set for Wednesday, the way her daughter's future balanced on a deadline. "Tick-tock," Mark said, tapping his watch. Behind him, a security radio crackled. "All bidders inside in 5, 4. Emma lifted her chin, the gate cool against her palm. She had 30 days and 5 minutes to change everything. The probate hearing was held in a courthouse that smelled faintly of varnish and old paper, the kind of place where decisions were stamped with the weight of centuries. Emma sat at the plaintiff's table beside Priya, the attorney from the legal clinic who had agreed to represent her pro bono. Her palms were damp against the smooth wood. Across the aisle sat Mark, flanked by 2 sharply dressed lawyers, his cufflinks catching the light like daggers. He caught her eye and smirked, as though the outcome were already carved in stone. "All rise," the bailiff called. The judge, a woman with silver hair pulled into a bun, entered. Her gaze swept the room, measured and cool. "We are here to discuss the estate of Howard Ellison and the preliminary dispute regarding distribution." Mark's lead attorney rose first. His voice was smooth, practiced. "Your Honor, we contest Ms. Reyes's inclusion as a beneficiary. The will was improperly influenced, and her so-called inheritance jeopardizes the estate's integrity. We request immediate suspension of her rights until a full review is conducted." Emma's stomach twisted. Improperly influenced? Howard had been many things, but weak-willed was not one of them. She wanted to shout that she hadn't even known about the inheritance until the letter appeared, but Priya placed a calming hand over hers and stood. "Your Honor, the will is clear. Mr. Ellison explicitly named Ms. Reyes. She has every right to her share, and any suggestion of undue influence is unsupported by evidence. We ask that her status be upheld." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Noted. And the matter of estate assets?" Mark's attorney pounced. "Sales must proceed. The estate loses value daily. Allowing Ms. Reyes to interfere will only cause chaos." Priya countered, voice firm. "Chaos, Your Honor, is stripping assets before rightful heirs can review them. We request a stay on sales until documentation is fully examined, including any supplementary materials Mr. Ellison may have left." At that, Mark stiffened. His lawyers exchanged quick glances. The judge noticed. During recess, Emma stepped into the hallway, nerves buzzing. Mark approached, his smile sharp. "You won't win," he murmured. "Even if you drag this out, the money will bleed away in fees. Take my offer, Emma. Walk away." Emma's voice shook, but she held his gaze. "I'm not walking away. Not this time." His expression darkened. "You don't have the stomach for war." She almost laughed. "I've survived worse than your war." He leaned closer, voice dropping to a hiss. "You think a judge can protect you? You don't know how deep this goes." Before she could answer, Priya returned. Mark stepped back, his face sliding into its mask of charm. Back inside, the judge called the session to order. "I've reviewed the preliminary filings. Ms. Reyes remains a beneficiary until proven otherwise. Sales of estate property will be paused for 7 days pending review of supplemental documents. Emma's breath caught. 7 days. A reprieve but also a countdown. Mark's jaw tightened. Your Honor. Enough, Mr. Ellison. The judge cut in. The court is not your stage. The gavel struck, ending the session. Emma exhaled shakily, the weight in her chest easing just a little. But the victory was fragile. 7 days to prove her claim, 7 days before Mark found another angle. That night, Emma returned to the motel exhausted, but sleep didn't come. Alvarez's words haunted her. Bottom drawer, false back. If Howard had left something, letters, instructions, it could be the proof she needed. She waited until Maya drifted off, then pulled out the probate packet again. The codicil, the addendum the man with glasses had whispered about, wasn't included. Someone had buried it, just like he'd warned. Her phone buzzed. A withheld number. She hesitated before answering. A low voice said, "You're looking for Howard's codicil, aren't you?" Her heart stopped. "Who is this?" "You don't know me," the caller said quickly. "But I worked with Mr. Ellison. He didn't trust everyone at that firm. He left copies in more than one place. If you want the truth, meet me tomorrow. Alone." The line went dead. Emma stared at the phone, adrenaline flooding her veins. Was this another trap? Another way for Mark to corner her? Or was it the lifeline she desperately needed? Either way, the clock was ticking. 7 days, and the mansion, Maya's future, everything, hung in the balance. Emma barely slept. Every creak of the motel pipes, every hum of passing cars made her startle awake. The mystery caller's voice replayed in her head. "If you want the truth, meet me tomorrow. Alone." She weighed the risks over and over. Mark's threats, the possibility of a trap, but in the end, she couldn't ignore it. Howard had trusted her when no one else did. If he had hidden something, she owed it to him and to Maya to find it. At sunrise, she dressed quietly, leaving Maya a note. "Running an errand. Back soon. Love you." She tucked the probate letter into her bag like a shield and walked to the bus stop. The city was just stirring, shopkeepers lifting shutters. The smell of bread drifting from a bakery she longed to call her own one day. The address the caller had given her was a crumbling office building downtown. Its bricks weathered, windows patched with tape. She hesitated at the door, her instincts screaming caution. But when she stepped inside, a man in his late 50s rose from a desk stacked with boxes. His tie was crooked, his eyes tired but sharp. "You must be Emma," he said. "I'm Daniel Hayes. I used to work with Howard." Emma's guard stayed high. "Why call me?" He motioned to the boxes. "Because Howard didn't trust everyone at the firm. He left instructions with me, backup documents in case certain relatives tried to bury his wishes. I think you've already seen the codicil mentioned?" Emma's heart thudded. "Yes, but it wasn't in the probate file." Daniel nodded grimly. "Exactly as he feared. Mark's attorneys are ruthless. But Howard left me this." He pulled a slim folder from a locked drawer and slid it across the desk. Emma opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single sheet, handwritten in Howard's careful script. Codicil to the last will and testament of Howard Ellison. Her name was written plainly, followed by words that blurred as tears filled her eyes. "In recognition of her stewardship and resilience, I grant Emma Reyes the right of first refusal for any sale of the Ashwood Lane property. She alone may decide its future use for community or personal endeavor." Her breath hitched. This wasn't just inheritance, it was authority. If she could prove this codicil valid, Mark couldn't sell the mansion without her consent. Daniel leaned back, watching her. "Howard wanted you to have more than scraps. He saw the way you cared for the place, how you looked after Maya. He told me once, she values people more than property. That's why she deserves it." Emma's throat tightened. She traced Howard's signature with her fingertip, overwhelmed. "Why didn't you give this to the court?" "I was waiting for the right moment," Daniel admitted. "And because men like your ex play dirty. If they knew you had this, they'd destroy it before it saw daylight." Emma slipped the folder into her bag, her pulse racing. Then I'll protect it. But as she left the building, a black car idled across the street. The window slid down just enough for her to see Mark in the driver's seat. Sunglasses hiding his eyes, but his smirk unmistakable. Fear crawled up her spine. How long had he been watching? Back at the motel, Emma found Maya sketching on the bed. She forced a smile. "We may have a real chance," she whispered, pulling out the codicil. Maya's eyes widened as she read the words. "Mom! This changes everything." Emma hugged her daughter tight, but unease gnawed at her. Mark wouldn't sit quietly now. The codicil was power, but also a target. That evening, a knock rattled their door. Emma's heart leapt. She opened it to find a delivery man holding a thick envelope. "From Ellison and Price Attorneys," he said, handing it over before disappearing down the hall. Inside was a new motion filed by Mark's lawyers. Petition to invalidate codicil on grounds of fraud. Attached was a letter accusing Emma of forging Howard's handwriting, complete with a sample analysis, claiming the signature was inconsistent. Her knees weakened. He had struck first. Maya clutched her arm. "What does it mean?" Emma swallowed hard. "It means he's trying to erase me. Again." But then she remembered Daniel's warning. Howard hadn't trusted just one safeguard. If there was one hidden drawer, could there be more? Proof stronger than a signature? Her phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Check the study. Bottom drawer. False back. Hurry before it's gone." Emma's chest tightened. The estate sale resumed tomorrow. If she didn't act, strangers could walk off with Howard's secrets before she ever laid eyes on them. She looked at Maya, determination blazing through fear. "We're going back to the house." The next morning, Emma and Maya stood at the edge of Ashwood Lane, the mansion looming beyond the gate. Trucks and cars were already lined up for the estate sale, bidders filing in with notebooks and calculators. Emma's heart pounded as she held Maya's hand. "Stay close," she whispered. Inside, the house buzzed with voices. Tables groaned under lamps, china sets, books stacked like bricks. But Emma's eyes locked on the study, the heart of Howard's legacy. She slipped inside, the air thick with dust and the faint smell of leather. The oak desk sat against the far wall, its drawers labeled with yellow tags. A man in a blazer jotted notes about a lamp, ignoring her. Emma knelt by the bottom drawer, palms damp. She pulled it open, empty. Her chest tightened. But then she remembered Alvarez's words. False back. She ran her fingers along the wood until one edge caught. Heart racing, she pressed. A thin panel slid free. Behind it, an envelope rested, sealed in red wax. She lifted it with trembling hands. Across the front, Howard's unmistakable handwriting. For Emma. To be opened only when needed most. "Find something?" A voice drawled behind her. Emma froze. Mark leaned in the doorway, arms folded, his lawyers hovering just behind him. "Step away from the desk," he ordered. Emma straightened, the envelope clutched to her chest. "Howard wanted me to have this." Mark's laugh was sharp. "You think a piece of paper will save you? My attorneys already proved your so-called codicil is a forgery." Emma's fear burned into steel. "This isn't a forgery," is Howard's last word. "And I'll make sure the court sees it." They met again in the courthouse 2 days later, the envelope presented under strict chain of custody. The judge broke the seal, her silver brows arching as she read. Silence stretched, the whole room leaning toward her voice. "This letter," the judge said finally, "confirms not only the codicil's authenticity, but Mr. Ellison's explicit intent that Ms. Reyes have controlling interest in the Ashwood Lane property. He specifies she alone has the right to determine its use, with preference given to community benefit." Emma's knees nearly gave out. Mark shot to his feet, shouting, "This is outrageous. Sit down, Mr. Ellison," the judge barked. "Your uncle's wishes are clear. The court upholds Ms. Reyes's rights as beneficiary and steward of the property. Motion to invalidate is denied." The gavel cracked like thunder. Emma exhaled a shuddering breath, tears blurring her vision. Across the aisle, Mark's face drained of color. For once, there was no smirk, only the collapse of a man who thought he could rewrite fate. Weeks later, Emma returned to the mansion, not as an exile but as its rightful owner. She walked through the echoing halls, sunlight spilling across marble floors. But this time, the house didn't feel cold. It felt like possibility. She didn't want chandeliers or sprawling gardens. She wanted a space alive with warmth. With the Grant and Howard's gift, she began transforming the mansion into something new. A community center and bakery combined. The grand dining hall became a cafe, the study a library for children, the kitchen filled with the smell of fresh bread. On opening day, neighbors streamed through the gates. Single mothers, tired fathers, children tugging at their parents' hands. They filled the rooms with laughter, not whispers. Emma stood at the front, apron tied neatly, flour dusting her hands. Beside her, Maya beamed, handing out rolls from a basket. The mansion that once symbolized loss now pulsed with life, redeemed by resilience. Late that afternoon, as the last guests trickled out, Emma stepped onto the balcony overlooking the grounds. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Maya leaned against her side, smiling. "Mom," she whispered. "You did it. You brought us home." Emma kissed the top of her head, her heart swelling. "No, Maya. We did it." Below, the iron gates that once shut her out now stood open, wide enough for anyone to walk through. She had been left with nothing, and now she had returned owning everything that mattered. If Emma's journey moved you, remember this. No matter how deeply life tries to erase you, resilience can rewrite the story. She was left with nothing, but she came back stronger, proving that dignity and hope can outshine cruelty. If you believe in second chances, hit subscribe, leave a comment about the part of Emma's story that touched you most, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Because sometimes, the mansion you lose becomes the home you rebuild in your own name.